Hello, guys. Welcome to Psych Minds. We are reading It Didn't Start With You, How Inherited Family Trauma Shapes Who We Are and How to End the Cycle by Mark Wolynn. If you have not subscribed to the channel Psyched Minds, do subscribe. We are on chapter 2 of the book, Three Generations of Shared Family History, the Family Body. I feel very strongly that I am under the influence of things or questions which were left incomplete and unanswered by my parents and grandparents and more distant ancestors. It often seems as if there were an impersonal karma within a family, which is passed on from parents to children. It has always seemed to me that I had to complete or perhaps continue things which previous ages had left unfinished. Carl Jung, Memories, Dreams, Reflections. The history you share with your family begins before you are even conceived. In your earliest biological form, as an unfertilized egg, you already share a cellular environment with your mother and grandmother. When your grandmother was 5 months pregnant with your mother, the precursors cells of the egg you developed from was already present in your mother's ovaries. This means that before your mother was even born, your mother, your grandmother, and the earliest traces of you were all in the same body. Three generations sharing the same biological environment. This is not a new idea. Embryology textbooks have told us as much for more than a century. Your inception can be similarly traced in your parental line. The precursor cells of the sperm you developed from were present in your father when he was a fetus in his mother's womb. With what we are now learning from the Yehuda studies and others about the way stress can be inherited, we can begin to map out how the biological residue of traumas your grandmother experienced can be passed down with far reaching consequences. There is, however, a significant biological difference in the evolution of the egg and sperm. Your father's sperm continued to multiply when he reached puberty, whereas your mother was born with her lifeline supply of eggs. Once her egg cells were formed in your grandmother's womb, that cell line stopped dividing. So, 12 to 40 or so years later, one of those eggs fertilized by your father's sperms eventually developed into who you are today. In either case, both precursor egg and sperm cells, science now tells us can be imprinted by events with the potential to affect subsequent generations. Because your father's sperm continues to develop throughout adolescence and adulthood, his sperm continues to be susceptible to traumatic imprints almost up until the point when you are conceived. The implications of this are startlingly vast, as we see when we look at the emerging research. Cellular biology. Scientists originally believed that our parents' genes forged the blueprint from which we are created. We were created, and that with just the right amount of guidance and nutrition, we would develop seamlessly according to plan. We now know that our genetic blueprint is merely the starting point, as influences from the environment from as early as conception begin to shape us emotionally, psychologically, and biologically, and this shaping continues throughout our lives. The pioneering cell biologist Bruce Lipton demonstrates that our DNA can be affected by both negative and positive thoughts, beliefs, and emotions. Dr. Lipton spent decades as a medical school professor and research scientist investigating the mechanism by which cells receive and process information. As a Stanford scholar and researcher from 1987 to 1992, he demonstrated that signals from the environment could operate through the cell membrane, controlling the behavior and physiology of the cell, which in turn could activate or silence a gene. His ideas and discoveries, which were once considered controversial, have since been corroborated by many researchers. As a result of his work with both animal and human cells, we now have a window of understanding into how cellular memory is transferred in the womb from a mother to her unborn child. According to Lipton, the mother's emotions such as fear, anger, love, hope, among others, can biochemically alter the genetic expression of her offspring. During pregnancy, nutrients in the mother's blood nourish the fetus through the wall of the placenta. With the nutrients, she also releases a host of hormones and information signals generated by the emotions she experiences. These chemical signals activate specific receptor protein in the cells, triggering a cascade of physiologic, metabolic, and behavioral changes in the mother's body as well as in the fetus. Chronic or repetitive emotions like anger and fear can imprint her child, essentially preparing or pre programming how the child will adapt to its environments. Lipton explains when stress hormones cross the human placenta, they cause fetal blood vessels to be more constricted in the viscera, sending more blood to the periphery, preparing the fetus for a fight or flight behavioral response. In that sense, a child who experienced a stressful in utero environment can become reactive in a similarly stressful situation. There are now numerous studies documenting how a pregnant mother's stress, even as early as the first trimester, can affect her child. One such study, published in 2010 in Biological Psychiatry, examined the relationship between prenatal stress and its effects on the neurodevelopmental of infants. The researchers measured the stress regulating hormone cortisol on the amniotic fluid of 125 pregnant mothers to determine stress levels. The findings demonstrated that babies exposed to increased cortisol in utero as early as 17 weeks after conception exhibited impaired cognitive development when they were evaluated at 17 months old. In his book, Nurturing the Unborn Child, a 9 month program for soothing, stimulating, and communicating with your baby, psychiatrist Thomas Verney tells us if a pregnant mother experiences acute or chronic stress, her body will manufacture stress hormones, including adrenaline and noradrenaline, that travel through her bloodstream to the womb, inducing the same stressful state in the unborn child. Verney goes on to say, our studies show that mothers under extreme and constant stress are more likely to have babies who are premature, lower than average in weight, hyperactive, irritable, and colicky. In extreme instances, these babies may be born with thumbs sucked, raw, or even with ulcers. Lipton stresses the importance of what he terms conscious parenting. Parenting with the awareness that from preconception all the way through postnatal development, a child's development and health can be profoundly influenced by the parents' thoughts, attitudes, and behaviors. Parents that did not wish to have a child, parents that are continuously concerned about their own and consequently their offspring's chances for survival, women who sustain physical and emotional abuse during their pregnancy all represent situations where adverse environmental cues surrounding the birth of their child can be passed on to the offspring. With the knowledge that emotions can be biologically communicated and the fact that three generations share the same biological environment of the womb, imagine this scenario. A month before your mother is born, your grandmother receives the devastating news that her husband has been killed in an accident. With a new baby to prepare for and little space to grieve the loss, your grandmother would likely submerge her emotions into the body she now shares with her daughter and grandchild. You and your mother would know something about that grief from a place deep inside you, a place all three of you share. It's within this shared environment that stress can cause changes to our DNA. In the next section, we'll look at how genes are affected by the traumas in our family history. Epigenetics. Bruce Lipton's work on cellular memory both predates and supports the emerging field of epigenetics, the study of heritable changes in gene function that occur without a change in the sequence of the DNA. Originally, it was believed that our genetic inheritance was transmitted only through the chromosomal DNA we received from our parents. Now, with greater understanding of the human genome, scientists have discovered that chromosomal DNA, the DNA responsible for transmitting physical traits such as the color of our hair, eyes, and skin, surprisingly make up less than 2% of our total DNA. The other 98% consist of what is called non coding DNA and cDNA and is responsible for many of the emotional, behavioral, and personality traits we inherit. Scientists used to call it junk DNA, thinking it was mostly useless, but they have recently begun to recognize its significance. Interestingly, the percentage of non coding DNA increases the complexity of the organism, with humans having the highest percentage. Non coding DNA is known to be affected by environmental stressors such as toxins and inadequate nutrition, as well as stressful emotions. The affected DNA transmits information that help us prepare for life out of the womb by ensuring that we have the particular traits we will need to adapt to our environment. According to Rachel Yehuda, epigenetics changes biologically prepare us to cope with the trauma that our parents experienced. In preparation for similar stressors, we are born with a specific set of tools to help us survive. On the one hand, this is good news. We are born with an intrinsic skill set, an environmental resilience, as Yehuda calls it, that allows us to adapt to stressful situations. On the other hand, these inherited adaptations can also be detrimental. For example, the child of a parent who early in life lived in a war zone may inherit the impulse to recoil in response to sudden loud noises. Although this instinct would be protective in the environment of a bomb threat, such a heightened startle response can keep a person in a highly reactive state even when no danger is present. In such a case, an incongruity would exist between the child's epigenetic preparedness and the actual environment. Such a mismatch could predispose someone to stress disorders and diseases later in life. These adaptive changes are caused by chemical signals in the cells known as epigenetic tags, which attach to the DNA and tell the cell to either activate or silence a specific gene. There's something in the external environment that affects the internal environment, and before you know it, a gene is functioning in a different way, says Yehuda. The sequence of the DNA itself does not change, but because of these epigenetic tags, its expression does. Research has shown that epigenetic tag can account for differences in how we regulate stress rate later in life. Scientists used to believe that the effects of stress were erased in the precursor sperm and egg cells soon after fertilization occurs before any epigenetic information could affect the next generation, like data being erased from a computer's hard drive. Scientists have now demonstrated, however, that certain epigenetic tags escape this reprogramming process and are in fact transmitted to the precursor egg and sperm cells that will one day become us. The most common epigenetic tag is DNA methylation, a process that blocks protein from attaching to a gene, suppressing its expression. DNA methylation can positively or adversely affect our health by locking helpful or unhelpful gene in the off position. When a stressor or trauma occurs, researchers have observed irregularities in DNA methylation that can be transmitted along with a predisposition for physical or emotional health challenges to subsequent generation. Another epigenetic mechanism that plays a significant role in gene regulation is the small non coding RNA molecule called the microRNA. As with DNA methylation, stress induced irregularities in microRNA levels can affect how genes are expressed in multiple generations. Among the numerous genes affected by stress are the CRF1, corticotropin releasing hormone receptors, and CRF2 genes. Increased levels of these genes have been observed in people who have depression and anxiety. The CRF1 and CRF2 genes can be inherited from stressed mothers who share similar increased amounts. Scientists have documented numerous other genes that can also be affected by trauma experienced early in one's lifetime. Our research demonstrates that genes retain some memory of their past experiences, says Dr. Jamie Hackett from the University of Cambridge. The historic study conducted by Yehuda in 2005 brought considerable awareness to the idea that stress patterns do, in fact, transfer from pregnant women to their children. Pregnant women in their second or third trimester who were either at or near the World Trade Center during the 9/11 attacks in New York City and who went on to develop PTSD delivered children who had low levels of cortisol. The children also exhibited increased distress in response to new stimuli. When cortisol levels are compromised, so is our ability to regulate emotions and manage stress. These babies were also smaller for their gestational age. Yehuda and her team suggest that the results of the 9/11 study are most likely due to epigenetic mechanisms. They found 16 genes that express differently in those who developed PTSD after 9/11 compared with those who did not. In an August 2015 study published in Biological Psychiatry, Yehuda and her team at New York's Mount Sinai Hospital demonstrated that gene changes could be transmitted from parents to their children, analyzing a particular region of a gene that's associated with stress regulation. Yehuda and her team found that Jews who had experienced trauma during the Holocaust and their children shared a similar genetic pattern. Specifically, they found epigenetic tags on the very same part of the gene in both parent and child. They compared the results with Jewish families who were living outside of Europe during the war and determined that the genes changes in the children could be attributed only to the trauma that the parents experienced. There are now a significant number of studies demonstrating how the traumatic experiences of parents can influence the gene expression and stress patterns of their children. In an article entitled Epigenetic Mechanisms of Depression, published in JAMA Psychiatry in February 2014 by Dr. Eric Nessler, writes, indeed, stressful life events have been shown to alter stress susceptibility in subsequent generations. Pregnant mothers who developed PTSD after 9/11 gave birth to children who not only had compromised cortisol levels but also were more easily disrupted by loud noises and unfamiliar people. One study in England found that children's emotional and behavioral problems doubled when their mothers were anxious during pregnancy. Trauma has the power to reach out from the past and claim new victims, writes addiction psychiatrist Dr. David Sack in Psychology Today. Children of a parent struggling with post traumatic stress disorder can sometimes develop their own PTSD called secondary PTSD. He reports that about 30% of kids with a parent who served in Iraq or Afghanistan and developed PTSD struggle with similar symptoms. The parent's trauma, he says, becomes the child's own, and the child's behavioral and emotional issues can mirror those of the parent. Children with a parent who was traumatized during the Cambodian genocide, for example, tend to suffer from depression and anxiety. Similarly, children of Australian Vietnam War veterans have higher rates of suicide than the general population. Native American youths on reservation have the highest suicide rate in the Western Hemisphere. In some parts of the country, the rate is 10 to 19 times higher than that of other American youth. Albert Bender, a Cherokee historian and attorney specializing in Native American law, suggests that the intergenerational trauma felt by all Native people, but particularly by Indian youth, is the result of the historical policy of genocide exemplified by the endless massacres, the forced removals and military campaigns that continued to the end of the 19th century, culminating in the Wounded Knee Massacre. He believes that generational grief is fueling these suicides. All of these memories, he says, resonate in the minds of our young people in one form or another. He reports that young people are hanging themselves at such a high rate that a week without suicide is now considered a blessing on many reservations. Lee Manuel Lee Bitsoy, a Navajo PhD research associate in genetics at Harvard University, corroborates Bender's claim that young people are reliving the past in their symptoms. He believes that epigenetic research is finally beginning to provide substantial evidence that intergenerational trauma is a real phenomenon. Native American youths, like the children of war veterans, like the children of Holocaust survivors, like the children of Cambodian genocide survivor, and like the children of the World Trade Center attack survivors, are among the modern world's newest victims of transgenerational trauma. Alarmingly, the list keeps expanding. Violence, war, and oppression. continue to slow the seed of generational reliving, as survivors unknowingly transmit what they have experienced to successive generations. Case in point, many young people born after 1994 in Rwanda, too young to have witnessed the senseless killings of approximately 800,000 people, experience the same symptoms of post traumatic stress as those who witnessed and survived the brutality. The young Rwandans report feeling of intense anxiety and obsessive vision similar to the horrors that occurred before they were even born. It is a phenomena that was expected. All that is not said is transmitted, says psychiatrist Nasan Munyadamutsa. Even children whose families were unscarred by the violence are similarly affected by what psychiatrist Ruta Kaili Bizoza refers to as a contagion in a collective subconscious. Yehuda claims that children of PTSD stricken mothers are 3 times more likely to be diagnosed with PTSD than children in her control group. She also finds that children of survivors are 3 or 4 times more likely to struggle with depression and anxiety or engage more in substance abuse when either parent suffered from PTSD. Yehuda and her team have also been able to distinguish differences in the children's symptom based on whether the mother or the father passed on the PTSD. Paternal PTSD, she discovered, increases the likelihood that the child will feel dissociated from his or her memories, whereas maternal PTSD increases the likelihood that the child will have difficulty calming down. Specifically, Yehuda reports that children of fathers who had PTSD are probably more prone to depression or chronic stress response. The opposite seems to be true for children whose mother had PTSD. Yehuda points out that mothers who survived the Holocaust feared being separated from their children, and that Holocaust offspring often complained that their mothers were over attached to them. Yehuda believes that the stress induced epigenetic modification we inherit from our father occur before conception and are transmitted in our father's sperm. She also believes that these changes can occur in our mothers either before conception or during gestation. Yehuda also notes that a mother's age when a trauma occurs is significant for what she transmits to her child. Children of Holocaust survivors, for example, inherited variances in the enzyme that convert active cortisol to inactive cortisol based on whether their mother were younger or were adults during the Holocaust. PTSD experienced by a grandparent can also affect succeeding generation, as we saw with Gretchen. War-related trauma can continue to spiral, affecting the grandchildren of those who suffered the original trauma. Traumas not only from war but from any event significant enough to disrupt the emotional equilibrium of our family, a crime, a suicide, an early death, a sudden or unexpected loss can lead to our reliving trauma, symptoms from the past. Sack writes, trauma travels throughout society as well as generationally. Epigenetic inheritance. It's only recently that scientists have begun to understand the biological processes that occur when trauma is inherited. To learn more, researchers have turned to animal studies because humans and mice share a strikingly similar genetic blueprint. 99% of the genes in humans have counterparts in mice. These studies provide us with a lens through which to view the effects of inherited stress in our own lives. This research is valuable for another reason. As a generation in Mike is approximately 12 weeks, multi generational studies can produce results in a relatively short time. A similar study conducted with humans could take as long as 60 years. Chemical changes in the blood, brain, ova, and sperm of mice are now being linked to behavioral patterns such as anxiety and depression in later generations. Studies performed on offspring, for example, have shown that the stress of maternal separation caused gene expression changes that can be traced for 3 generations. In one such study, researchers prevented females from nurturing their pups for up to 3 hours a day during their first 2 weeks of life. Later in life, their offspring exhibited behavior similar to what we call depression in humans. The symptoms seemed to worsen as the mice aged. Surprisingly, some of the males did not express the behaviors themselves but appeared to epigenetically transmit the behavioral changes to their female offspring. The researchers also discovered altered methylation and gene expression changes in the stressed mice. Among the genes involved was the CRF2 gene, which regulates anxiety in both mice and humans. The researchers also found that the germ cell, the precursor egg and sperm cells, as well as the brains of the offspring, were affected by the stress of being separated from their mothers. In another experiment with rats, offsprings that received low level of maternal care were more anxious and more reactive to stress in adulthood than were the rats that received high levels of maternal care. This stress pattern was observed in multiple generations. It's common knowledge that infants who have been separated from their mothers can experience challenges as a result. In studies involving male mice, pups that were separated from their mother exhibited lifelong increase in stress susceptibility and generated offspring that exhibited similar stress patterns over several generations. In one of those studies conducted at the Brain Research Institute of the University of Zurich in 2014, researchers subjected male mice to repeated and prolonged periods of intense stress by separating them from their mother. Afterward, the traumatized mice exhibited a number of depression like symptoms. The researchers then had the mice reproduce and discovered that the pups in both the second and third generation showed the same symptoms of trauma despite never having experienced it themselves. The researchers also discovered abnormally high numbers of microRNA, genetic material that regulates gene expression, present in the sperm, blood, and hippocampi of the traumatized mice. The hippocampus is brain region involved in stress response. Abnormal levels of microRNA were also discovered in the blood and hippocampi of mice from the second generation, although mice in the third generation expressed the same symptoms of trauma as did their father and grandfather. Elevated numbers of microRNA were not detected, leading researchers to speculate that the behavioral effects of a traumatic event can express for three generations, but perhaps not beyond that. With the imbalance in microRNA in sperm, we have discovered a key factor through which trauma can be passed on, explains Isabel Mansui, a co-author of the study. She and her team are currently studying the role of microRNA in trauma inheritance in humans. What makes the mouse research so intriguing is that science can now substantiate how the challenges experienced in one generation can become the legacy transmitted to the next. Looking at the possible implication of all this, we have to ask ourselves what's really being handed down to our kids. In a study involving the offspring of stressed male mice conducted at Emory University School of Medicine in 2013, researchers discovered that the traumatic memories could be passed down to subsequent generations through epigenetic changes that occur in DNA. Mice in one generation were trained to fear a cherry blossom like scent called acetophenon. Each time they were exposed to the smell, they simultaneously received an electric shock. After a while, the shocked mice had a greater amount of smell receptors associated with that particular scent, enabling them to detect it at a lower concentrations. They also had enlarged brain areas devoted to those receptors. Researchers were also able to identify changes in the mice's sperms. The most intriguing aspect of the study is what occurred in the next two generations. Both the pups and grandpups, when exposed to the blossom odor, became jumpy and avoided it. Despite never having experienced it before, they also exhibited the same brain changes. The mice appeared to inherit not only the sensitivity to the scent, but also the fear response associated with it. Brian Diaz, one of the researchers of the study, suggests that there's something in the sperm that is informing or allowing that information to be inherited. He and his team noted abnormally low DNA methylation in both the sperms of the father mice and the sperm of the offspring. Although the exact mechanism for how a parent's traumatic experience gets stored in the DNA is still under investigation, Diaz says It behooves ancestors to inform their offspring that a particular environment was a negative environment for them. This particular study provides compelling evidence for what the researchers term transgenerational epigenetic inheritance, the notion that behaviors can pass from one generation to another. When I work with families in my practice, I often see recurring patterns of illness, depression, anxiety, relationship struggles, and financial hardship, and always feel compelled to look deeper. What unexplored event in a previous generation that drives the behavior of the man who loses all his money at the racetrack, or the woman who chooses to be intimate only with married men? How have their genetic inheritances been influenced? Diaz and his group are hoping to carry out further work to determine whether similar effects can be seen in the genes of humans. Until the data is examined in human studies spanning multiple generations, the current research with animals certainly asks us to pause and consider how we are born sharing the stress of our parents and grandparents. In a 2013 study involving female rats published in Biological Psychiatry, University of Haifa researchers Hiba Zaidan, Micah Leshem, and Ina Geisler Salomon discovered that even relatively mild stress before conception and pregnancy was significant enough to affect offspring. Several of the rats were exposed to minor stress, such as changes in temperature, as early as 45 days after they were born, which is equivalent to adolescence in humans. Remarkably, the effects were measurable in the next generation. Focusing on the CRF1 gene, which encodes a molecule involved in the body's response to stress, the researchers detected increased amount of the molecular product of this gene in the brain of the stressed female rats. They also discovered significantly increased concentration of this same molecular product in the eggs of the stressed females and also in the brains of their offspring, demonstrating that information about the stress experience was being transferred in the eggs. The researchers insist that the altered behavior in the newborn rat is unrelated to the type of parenting the pups received from their mother. This particular study suggests that even if humans receive supportive parenting as infants, we are still the recipients of the stress our parents experienced before we were conceived. In the next chapter, we will explore how siblings born of the same parent may inherit different traumas and lead contrasting lives despite sharing a similar upbringing. In a 2014 study with rats at the University of Lethbridge in Canada, researchers examined the effect of stress on pregnant mothers and its influence on preterm birth. The findings revealed that stressed mother delivered preterm babies and bore daughters who also had shortened pregnancies. The granddaughter experienced even shorter pregnancies than their mothers. What surprised the researchers most occurred in the third generation. Granddaughters of stressed grandmothers had shorter pregnancies even when their mothers had not been stressed. Gerlinde Metz, senior author of the article, says a surprising finding was that mild to moderate stress during pregnancy had a compounding effect across generations, thus, the effect of stress grew larger with each generation. Metz believed that the epigenetic changes are due to known coding microRNA molecules. These findings could have implications for how humans who are at a risk for pregnancy or childbirth complications due to stress. Given that our generation in humans is approximately 20 years, the results from human studies spanning multiple generations are still pending. However, with the research demonstrating that stress can be transmitted through at least three generations of mice, the researchers surmise that children born to human parents who experienced a traumatic or stressful event would also likely pass the pattern down, not only to their children but to their grandchildren as well. Uncannily, the Bible in Numbers 14:18 appears to corroborate the claims of modern science, or vice versa, that the sins, iniquities, or consequences, depending on which translation you read, of the parents can affect the children up to the third or and fourth generation. Specifically, the New Living Translation states, "The Lord is slow to anger and filled with unfailing love, forgiving every kind of sin and rebellion. But he does not excuse the guilty. He lays the sins of the parents upon their children. The entire family is affected, even children in the third and fourth generations." As new discoveries in epigenetics are revealed, new information about how to mitigate the transgenerational effects of trauma could become standard practice. Researchers are now finding that our thoughts, inner images, and daily practices such as visualizations and meditation can change the way our gene expresses, an idea we will examine in more detail in the next chapter. That brings us to the end of chapter 2. We will be reading chapter 3 in our next reading. If there is any suggestions, any kind of feedback, any criticism as well, you are welcome to reach out to me in the comment section of the video you're viewing or in the community section of the YouTube channel. If you have not subscribed to the channel yet, do subscribe, like, and share. We are reading currently It Didn't Start With You by Mark Wolynn. To keep listening, tune in, and I will be ending the stream now. Bye bye. Take care. Keep reading.